So this video is going to show you how to make a bolognese. Now, to save a bit of time and you not having to watch me peel an onion, I've chopped the top off the onion and I've peeled it, but I've kept the root on. That is because the correct way to actually do your onion is to then cut through the root. Okay, so all the way through. This is quite a large onion. You won't actually need one quite this big if you don't like onion too much. Then what we're going to do is you're going to actually slice. Okay, I'm not sure, and your fingers should be tucked under, sorry. Okay, slice your onion towards the root, but not actually cutting through it. So you're going right the way through the onion. Okay, and then we're going to move to the bridge hold to try and keep that in place a little bit more. And again, cutting up, but not all the way through because we want it to hold together. And then we're just going to chop in the other direction. And that will cut our onion into smaller pieces. Okay, I'm not being very good there, keeping my fingers out the way, so make sure you're not doing what I'm doing and you're actually keeping your fingers tucked right underneath. So once you've chopped all your onion up into smaller pieces, now I like onion, so I don't tend to chop them too small. What you just need to remember is if you chop them up too small, then you need to be careful that you don't overcook them, otherwise they'll more or less just shrink away to nothing. Okay, so I've actually got that in to my pan now, so then I can start with my pepper. Now again, a couple of ways of doing pepper. Okay, I tend to chop the top off and then pull all of the middle out with my hands. That's the easiest way usually to make sure that you're grabbing all of that out. Now personally, and you may find, as I said, that you've got your own ways of chopping certain things, whatever way you find easiest, and obviously doing it safely. But I tend to actually try and now squeeze the pepper together to actually make it that bit firmer, so that I can just actually cut through it and cut that into rings. And then when I've got that cut into rings, I will just actually cut it again into smaller pieces, making sure each time that you're keeping, you can see here that I'm holding on the end with my thumb and my finger, but I'm actually cutting away, further away from where I'm actually holding. So again, once you've got all of your pepper done, that can go into your pan as well, and then we're going to be able to fry those off. I've also got a tablespoon of oil in the bottom of my pan. Now I wouldn't personally add the mushrooms at this point. I'm just going to show you at the moment how to chop them up and get them ready, because I want to move the hob into the camera screen. So with your mushrooms, okay, you can just pop your mushroom flat down. I would again tend to put it down whichever way it actually sits more stable for you. And again, okay, keeping your fingers out the way, you can just actually slice down. Now again, I know some pupils tend to actually, once they've got the slices of mushroom, they like to cut it up into much smaller pieces. Okay, that again is entirely up to you. Okay, I'm cutting the stalk off there to make it smaller, to make it more stable, sorry. Okay, but then just doing exactly the same thing and cutting it down. If you do cut it into really small pieces, just remember that the mushrooms do shrink when they're cooked, and they will really disappear if you cut them too small. Right, now I've just put my mushrooms over to the side there, out the way for the moment. And before I start frying anything up, I've just opened up my can of tomatoes ready, opened up my stock cube, and opened up my minced beef ready to use. So I've got, as I said, a tablespoon of oil in my pan. I've just turned it onto a medium heat so that it's not on too hot. And I'm just going to first of all fry off the peppers and the onions. You could at this stage, if you wanted to as well, add a grated carrot or a couple of grated carrots to just bulk out your bolognese a bit, and again to add a different texture and flavour to the bolognese. But at this stage I'm just going to actually stick to my onions and my peppers. So once we've softened up the peppers and the onions, we can actually add our mince in there now. Now it is really important to remember that there is a layer of paper underneath, so I tend to, depending on how much mince you've got, just hold on to the paper while I tip it out. If you've got a larger pack, it may be that your paper actually goes in there as well, and you just need to very carefully take it out. Now you could do this recipe as well using corn. If you are using corn, I wouldn't do this stage as it is now. I would actually add the tomatoes and then add the corn. But if you're using meat, if you're using your minced beef or your minced lamb, even minced turkey, okay, it is important to actually cook that off first so that we know that it's fully cooked. So we don't want to put the tomatoes in the pan with that, because we want to check that it's lost that red colour before we add the tomatoes in. So you can see here that some of the meat has started to go brown. Hopefully you can see that on the camera, but we've still got quite a lot of pink meat in here, so it isn't actually ready at this stage. We need all the meat to have turned brown before we move on to the next stage. Okay, so all of the meat has gone brown now. There are no pink bits remaining, so we can actually add the tomatoes into that. It would be safe to do that at this point. So very carefully, okay, it shouldn't spit back at you if you've got it on a nice medium heat, but very carefully add your can of chopped tomatoes. Now at this stage as well, you may decide that you want to add some herbs and spices, or you may decide that you just want to keep it simpler than that and just add a stock cube for some flavour. So I've actually got one of the potted stock cubes here, so I'm just going to drop it in. It is important though to make sure that you break that up properly. Okay, so just watch where you're breaking it up to, because you wouldn't want somebody to be eating the bolognese and suddenly come in across a piece of stock that hadn't actually broken down. So just make sure that you are breaking that up. Now you may decide that your bolognese is too watery and you may want to add a little bit of tomato puree to it. I'm not going to do that at this stage. I'm going to let it cook off for a little bit first, and then I'm going to decide if I want to add some puree to it. What I am going to add though now at this stage is my mushrooms. Okay, so I'm just going to pop my mushrooms in. Now again, I know some of you like some variations with your bolognese. Some of you may actually like some sweet corn in there. So again, you could actually add that at this stage. This is exactly the same as as if you were making a chili. So you could, at this stage as well, if you wanted to turn this into a chili, add some chili powder and some red kidney beans, and you would actually then have yourselves a chili, so a variation on your bolognese. So that's been on the boil now for 10 minutes. So I'm going to turn that off now and it would be ready to serve. I'm not going to thicken that up with any puree, because I do actually like it to be quite moist when I'm using it, because I serve it up with spaghetti, so it does all actually then soak up. This would be exactly the same as well if you wanted to make a lasagna. This is one of the components of a lasagna, so that could be something then you could actually extend on to doing. But you could serve this with some pasta. Okay, if you remember from the videos which we've seen in the past, so actually, sorry, I haven't shown you the video yet because we haven't done the pasta lesson in school, but in Italy they actually serve bolognese with pappardelle so that it can actually trap up the meat pieces. You could have it on a jacket potato, you could serve it with rice. There's no reason why bolognese has to be served with pasta, so there's lots of different options that you've got with that.